Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. It's good to be with you this morning. Spring is beginning to show up around here. I know in some places it's already sprung in great vigor, in other places it hadn't gotten there yet. But you know, life goes on and life continues. Even in the midst of tragedies and difficulties, life just keeps moving on. And this morning I'd like to share a passage that talks about that. Some good news from the Gospel of John, chapter 9, and the first three verses. And here's what it says. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? And Jesus answered, it was not because of his sins or his parents' sin. This happened so that the power of God could be seen in him. Now, if you think about this story and you know a little bit about Jewish theology and culture of the day, this is a pretty simple story. Jesus finds this blind man, and his disciples ask the simple question, is he blind because of something he did? Or is he blind because something his parents did? See, there was always a cause and an effect in the minds of people in Jesus' day. If this happened, it was because of something else. And the something else could be one of a couple of things, but that was it. We talk now about things being coincidence or happening by chance, and they didn't talk that way in Jesus' day. In fact, I don't think that thought would have ever occurred to them. And the Old Testament talks about punishment for sins, and it talks about the sins of the parents being visited on the children and subsequently to other children. The Old Testament Jew, and you have to remember that when Jesus was walking on this earth, that's what they were. There wasn't any New Testament. There weren't any New Testament Jews. It was just the Old Testament law abiding, law ruled Jewish people. And so they thought like the law taught them to think. And so they ask a real simple question. They weren't trying to be difficult. They weren't trying to cause problems. They weren't trying to ask this thing that almost no one could answer. They simply were curious as to whether he was blind because of something he did, or he was blind because of something his parents did. And they knew that Jesus would have the answer, so they asked him that question. And his answer astounded them. Because his answer was, well, neither. And if you could have been one of those disciples of Jesus there, one of those followers, you would have been stopped in your tracks. What do you mean, neither? It has to be one or the other. Jesus said, no. This happened so that the power of God could be seen on him. Well, I don't know if the disciples understood that answer or not. But basically what Jesus is saying is, it doesn't matter why it happened. What matters is what happens next. And that dilemma or that situation or that question is one that you and I face or have faced or might yet face all the time. Why did such and such happen? What's the reason? Who's to blame for this? Somebody's supposed to have caused it. Or maybe it just happened by chance. Maybe we're just walking through this world and things happen or don't happen. And if we're real lucky, we get to the end in pretty decent shape. Well, maybe that's your thinking. It's not mine. And it's a rather I don't want to say it's a sad way of thinking. Obviously, a lot of people think it, but I would say it's a disappointing way of thinking. That life is nothing more than just happenstance and chance in all that we do. Well, today, when something goes wrong, one of the first questions that people ask is why? Why did this happen? Why did it not happen to someone else? Why did it happen to me? And as a pastor, I get that question all the time. And you know what? I don't have a good answer because I don't know why. At the very best, only God does. And usually, it's only way after the fact can we begin to understand why. I'll give you an example. Some of you know that about a month ago, I slipped on the ice and I broke one of my vertebrae. Now, I got to tell you, that was no fun. I'm about totally recovered, but it's still sore in that spot. And people ask me what happened. And I said, well, I was walking across the driveway and I hit some ice and I fell. That's what happened. And they say, oh, well, that's a tragedy. Well, yeah, it was. My back showed it. It hurt. But for that week I was in the hospital, they discovered, the docs, the medicine and whatnot, that I need some more surgery to correct another problem that I wasn't aware of. Now, I don't want to say if I hadn't fallen and hurt my back, then I wouldn't have found this out. I mean, that's possible, I guess. But I do want to say that God used that for something good. And when things happen in our lives that aren't good, while we want to understand them, what's more important is not why it happened, but what's God going to do next? If we turn to Him in the midst of those situations, He'll show us. And something good will come out of it. Now, if we don't turn to Him and look for that and just want to be angry and blame, I mean, I could blame the ice the rest of my life. I don't think the ice really cares. But, it just happened. And it wasn't fun. And it was painful. But out of it has come something even better. I can fix something before it breaks. Then I'm in real trouble. So in your life, when things happen to you, I know you want to know why. I do too. But try to set that aside and look at it the way Jesus looked at it. It doesn't really matter why the guy was blind. The truth is that God wants to reveal his power because and in the midst of his blindness. And in our lives, the same is still true. When you're struggling, when you're trying to make sense out of something, try to see what God can use it for. And then maybe the sense will finally show up. Well, thanks for listening. If you have a need or a prayer request, please let us know. We'll do everything we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. Thanks so much for listening. I wish you a wonderful day. God bless you, and I'll talk to you again.